ISO FileMaker Magazine, the professional's resource for FileMaker know-how.
Well, hello there, and welcome back to yet another FileMaker tutorial where we are going to learn more about FileMaker Pro. This is Matt Petrowski, bringing you these tutorials from my website, FileMakerMagazine.com. This is a very cool video. For me, as a jaded developer working in FileMaker for close to 30 plus years now, there is a tool that's got me excited. Let's take a look and see what I'm talking about. All right, thank you for joining me on my desktop here. What is the tool? It is an auto indentation tool. Now, the code that you want that solves the problem that you are currently having is likely already done. As I switch over to Safari, there's multiple places where you can get code. Now, historically, there is this website over at Brian Dunning. Brian Dunning used to be a FileMaker developer. He no longer is, but for some reason, the community still goes to this as the go-to place for custom functions. And I have a custom function right here loaded, age. We're going to take a look at that and see how cool this tool is and what it does. But essentially, you can come to this website and you can search for a function. There are so many. This is just 2,500 of them. Well, close to 2,600 of them. There are other places as well. You may already know about this. If you go over to FileMakerStandards.org, you're going to be able to, if you click on the sidebar where it says repositories, find various GitHub repositories with collections of custom functions. The code has already been done for you. On top of that, and this is just one of them, Jeremy Bonte is a very talented developer. He has a GitHub repo at jbonte/FileMaker Techniques. I use a lot of his custom functions, mathematically brilliant. AI is everywhere. You are going to be able to ask AI to write scripts, write functions, write whatever you want to do. You come in and you can say, create a FileMaker let function, and you should be doing this, by the way. Function which calculates the time elapsed from a given, let's zoom out here, start time. It should display as X months, days, weeks, minutes, seconds ago. In fact, you don't even have to get those in order. You click that, ChatGPT is going to create the function for you. You're going to have to possibly tweak it, whatever, but you're going to be able to take this into FileMaker. But now we're going to get to the part that is really cool, the tool. And I'm going to go over to Brian Dunning's website, and we are going to go to the newest functions, and for some reason, there are some developers that looking at a language or looking at syntax for them is like reading a foreign language. So over in my FileMaker solution, it does not matter where I am. I will go into my Manage Custom Functions. I will click my New, which I've just done right there, and I have a FileMaker calculation dialog box. Now, all things being equal, I can use the custom function that we have on screen as is. There's no problem for me to do this. This was my input parameter right here. I would go up here and just name it exactly what Kyle had named this. Age with an input parameter of birth date. Click the plus, I click OK, and this will work. It will work absolutely fine. But there are some custom functions that you want to be able to understand or revise and so forth. So I like to make custom functions, and Kyle, and for those of you that love this starting, I don't know why this is for some developers, but they love to start their lines with a semicolon. It's bizarre to me, but it works for them. But it's like reading a completely different language to me when the custom function or the code is really complex. Now, I know that they like doing this because they can do this right here. If you didn't know, whenever you see a custom function that is formatted as such, they're primarily doing it so that they can comment out lines, often for the purpose of testing while you're writing it within a watch variable. Well, right here, I can simply select this, and I'm going to hit a keyboard shortcut, and I'm going to show you this free tool that you can use where when I hit that shortcut, I have some additional processing set to do this. It's called post-processing after the tool does what it's going to do. But we're going to take a look at the tool and see how you can get exactly what you want. In this particular case, I'm just going to say no. What this did is it automatically reformatted this custom function or this FileMaker code to a format that I like. But I took it one step further. If I select everything on screen and I hit my Control F again, and I get to assign the keyboard shortcut, in this particular instance, I'm going to say process with JavaScript. Watch what's going to happen where these variables become renamed automatically according to my preferred style, which is documented over at FileMaker Standards. I'll say yes, and there it is. And now I get the benefit on top of that of the Monkey Bread plugin. Now, it doesn't stop there. In fact, there's so many things going on about this tool when you're in FileMaker. First off, if you don't know, the Monkey Bread plugin, it's providing all of this coloring. All of the colors that you see here, and if I put a field in here, actually, this is a custom function in an older, but the current version of FileMaker, which will not auto complete my code. I could take this, which I will do this, over into a watch variable. It doesn't matter where I am. Here's a watch variable. I create this. I paste in my code. If I wanted to have, say, for example, another variable, and notice it does the tabs. It does whatever I want. Variable equals, and then I can put this right here, and it will be red. So I can distinguish between what are my fields, what are my variables, what are my functions, etc. All that syntax coloring is provided by the MBS plugin. I have other videos on YouTube and on the FileMaker Magazine website that show you that. MBS also does this, your line number and your character position, which is also helpful when you're working with other developers. Monkey Bread plugin also does this down at the bottom. It does syntax checking, but it does not do syntax formatting. Or if it does, it's one way, that way only, and that's all you get. This right here, I believe, I forget which one this is. We can actually see what that is. That is the one that is doing the formatting for you. It took that formatting. I can undo right there. So you can see it's applying its own formatting, but it's only that one formatting unless Christian has a way to do that. This checks the syntax. It's telling me that a field is missing. It's basically running this through the calculation engine without me having to click monitor. And then play is actually going to the play icon would give me a result down here at the bottom of what that calculation result ends up in. Extremely useful, the Monkey Bread plugin, but all of this syntax formatting that you can have ultimate power comes from a brand new tool, and it is this. So you find yourself asking the question, where should you host your FileMaker solution? Well, one of those dots right there. That's what I would pick. Now, they didn't come to me. I went to them, and I trust fmcloud.fm with all of my data. They are using the latest tech. In fact, did you know Claris is actually, in some instances, releasing features first and only for Linux? What does fmcloud.fm use? They use Linux. On top of that, they use containerization. And if you've not heard about containerization, then you will be. It's one of the best ways to host your FileMaker solution. I highly suggest that you check out fmcloud.fm. The tool is called FM Indent. This is from a company called AptWorks Consulting. The developer who developed it, her name is Debbie Fuchs. I believe that's correct. It's like cucumber, but with the Fuchs. Debbie has been in the FileMaker market for probably as long as I have been in personally, and many of us, which are older FileMaker developers, and she has provided a wide variety of extremely powerful custom functions. You switch over to Brian Dunning website, you come over here, you look, search for, I believe apply is one that I've used. There's one, there we go, Debbie, right there. She has apply function. One of the ones that I have used the most is a function called col_nulls, I believe. That's one that I almost always have a particular custom function. This one in particular in most every FileMaker solution that I actually create. Again, the code already exists for you, but what Debbie has done for us now is just absolutely incredible. And we're going to go over the whole way how to set this up and how to get additional benefits. So you want to stay tuned and watch this full video if you want the full power. So I'm going to bring up the app, FM Indent, and it will create a new window. Now, the first time the app starts up, it's going to have some code in it for you to actually evaluate. I'm going to click on the preferences, and I'm going to make that happen again. It is an option right here of show sample calc right there. And this is the calc that I worked with in order to play with this, in order to get it working so that I could apply my post-processing to it. So for those of you that like those semicolons, I didn't want to tell you how to do this, but I'm ultimately going to show you how you can do this if you want to get those semicolons at the beginning of the lines. But of course, as a developer, you will have to do the code. So let me quit the app right now. We'll open it again, FM Indent, and there is our code. So this app is running more or less. It doesn't have to be running. In fact, you can do this in any area in the OS. And by the way, Windows users, unfortunately, this is a Mac-only tool. So watch what happens when I copy this code, and I'm going to switch over to the standard text edit application. So I'm in a completely different place right now. And what makes this so cool is it doesn't matter where you are in the OS. If you can select code and you can run an assigned shortcut key, or an assigned key to a shortcut, which we're going to take a look at, the Shortcuts app, you can format that code, which right now it's running my version of my shortcut, which adds on some post-processing. So if I apply this with my post-processing, I'm going to get some additional benefits, which in particular for me puts my ampersands at the beginning. Now, if I undo that and I actually just run that again with Control F and say no, this is the formatting as according to the settings that are set that code will actually render. How do you control and see what the code is going to get? Well, you do that in the actual application. Let's hide this. So we are in FM Indent right here. You can see this. There is an option. There's multiple options. In fact, everything here on the side controls how this code is going to be reformatted. Now, if you're a beginner or intermediate developer and you're wondering curiously, how does this actually happen? I love to give you foundations and understanding, because having that understanding makes you a better developer. So give me the opportunity to explain this really quickly. Out of all of this content, which this is valid FileMaker function, this is code that would work in FileMaker if fields evaluated, etc. The way that this works is when you're going to take all of this, you're going to break it apart and explode it into a bunch of different little pieces. They're called tokens. And many times those tokens, they have different rules. For example, anytime that you detect a parenthesis, if you can detect a word in front of that parenthesis, it's more than likely that that is a function. And I don't know if Debbie's doing it exactly this way. I had a really good conversation with her. This all came about because she had a Perl script that did this originally. She moved it into Swift, created FM Indent, which makes it infinitely useful because of the access through the OS. But if this was treated as a token, it's a function, and then Debbie can actually say, okay, well, if you want to put a space in front of this versus not, or if you want a space here versus not, that's what it gives you the control. So now let's watch how we control this. I select all of this code, which this is key, by the way. In the app, I don't have to have it selected. But as we'll see later on, you can work with just specific selections in your code if you don't want all of the formatting applied. Plus, there's other tips that I'm going to give you when you want to further enhance your code. So what we can do here is there's this option to apply formatting controls instantly. With this checkbox checked right there, what happens is you get to play with all of the settings that are right here. Watch what happens when I change my indent level. And we'll zoom in so that we can see this from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 in terms of how far you are willing to go out with your indents. Now, on top of that, you can use tabs, which I highly suggest. Let's get that on screen. I highly suggest this, and I'm going to show you why. If you like spaces, then you can certainly turn that off, and what happens is you now have spaces. If I go in here and hit the arrow key, you can see it's spaces. I click this, instantly it's converted to tabs. You can see it jumps right there. This is so incredibly useful. Now, on top of that, you've got your nesting depth of what you can support right here, going to infinity at this point in time because I don't have any more than a certain number of levels. Really won't apply. In fact, as we go down here, you can see that it really only applies once we get down into a lower nesting level. Debbie has automatically set some sane defaults, which end up being, I forget what they are. I think it's 4, 8, 8, what have you. Your wrap. This is really cool because I love to write and compose code. In fact, it's the reason that I have stipulated for myself that if I'm doing a lot of concatenations, I like to have that concatenation on its own line so that I know exactly what is being concatenated to what. So it's easier for me to actually read and say, okay, I've got a middle that's being appended to that is a comma. Being appended to that is another middle function. It's one of the reasons that I like ampersands first on each of the lines rather than them spread throughout a line of code. And we're going to see how you can actually control that. So the wrap is really pretty cool because it allows you to control and set this. In this particular case, none of this code must be hitting this wrap, but you can set this to whatever level you want. And of course, the code would be modified just like it would right here. Is it not being modified because there we go, apply that, go up to 4. It may have recognized that I had modified that code by tweaking it with the ampersands. And let's see if the wrap now changes. There we go. We can see that the wrap is now extending where it's extending way off the screen right there. So we'll set this to something. I love using 8. 8 is your standard. All code needs to fit within a range and be visible in order to see. Tighten parens. This is going to take your spaces off of your parens. Tighten arguments, which is the one that I just hid right there behind me. So you can see that as you click and make these changes, the whole of the function formatting, syntax formatting changes, which is absolutely wonderful. Once you have established the defaults that you like, there is the ability down here at the bottom to save or load options. Now, this only applies in the actual tool. When you are going to use this outside in the rest of the OS, the absolute critical thing that you need to know is that Macintosh applications are able to provide whatever it is that they do, if the developer is so chosen, as a service or as something that is available to other applications. Now, in the Macintosh, we have an application called Shortcuts. Shortcuts is the magic that allows you to do whatever you want to this syntax formatted code. Do it in any application, in particular in FileMaker, in any dialog, anywhere, with only the text that you have selected. So that's what we're going to take a look at now. This is the critical part. You can sit here and play with FM Indent, get it to be exactly how you want, get all of those semicolons off of the front of lines to the end of the lines if you like to be able to read your code. And then you can do it in FileMaker. We're going to see how you hook this up with shortcuts. All right, so let's talk about the key component that allows you to use the new FM Indent anywhere in your operating system. It is the Shortcuts application. Now, really quickly, let's go back over to FM Indent. And what is going to come up when you install it? And if you're unfamiliar, you haven't used Shortcuts, or you just don't want to take the time, you just want to get into FM Indent, start taking a look at switching things around and seeing what kind of changes you can make to your code in order to get it exactly how you like, there is this tip that will come up. It's an important tip. You must read it, and everything that is here walks you through the process of setting up the shortcut. Now, essentially, this get shortcut is simply going to load, it's clicking a link. That link goes to Apple's Shortcuts website. That shortcut loads into your Shortcuts app, and then you'll be able to work with the shortcuts. So switching back over to Shortcuts, let's take a look at that. Here is the original right here. Now, what I did, knowing that I wanted to take advantage of shortcuts to go beyond what Debbie has provided with FM Indent, I simply just right-clicked and I duplicated that. That duplicate is my version of format according to FileMaker standards. It applies post-processing to what Debbie is doing. Now, if you only want to be able to just use, or what the FM Indent gives you is completely adequate, you don't need to do anything other than modify this shortcut. And here's what you'll need to do. You'll want to click this. You'll want to right-click, choose Edit. Now, when this opens up, now, if you don't know, Shortcuts is going to provide just a plethora of things that you can do. It's got a full programming language. It accesses other programming languages, as we're going to see. But here is the fundamental of how this works. It's going to receive text input from a quick action, which, by the way, if you don't know, you can do this in FileMaker at any point in time. Just because format calculation is the application right here, this is a normal shortcut up at the top right here, or a normal action as part of shortcuts, which you can use. You can receive text and send it into shortcuts and then do stuff to it. You can even do it with images. You can do it with all kinds of stuff. Now, here we can see something familiar. This is all of the settings that were in the FM Indent application. These are set independent of when you're in the application. As you saw when I was showing you in the applications, you had a save and load. Those settings are not these settings. These settings are specific to this particular shortcut. So you can have a different shortcut with different settings if you want different formatting styles, meaning you can control all of the same settings that Debbie has exposed in the app itself. It's just that they're maintained in the shortcut uniquely. So I have my settings right here. And then finally, down at the bottom, it says stop and output whatever the format calculation was. Now, here's the key. Up here in the top, there are two different options. There's this little, Apple's using an AI thing here, but it's not actually AI. It was and always has been your ability to simply search for particular things. So if I type in variable, here are my variable steps. If I type in display, it would actually show me, things that have the word display in this. Of course, Apple's AI may get to the point where it's like, oh, I see that you're, taking some input. Here are the most logical things, etc. afterwards. But we want this right here. So every shortcut in the Shortcuts app has details, and you get to control. For example, one of the things that Debbie's got that was set on here that she could afford to turn off is show on Apple Watch. I don't need to see this particular shortcut on my Apple Watch, so that just clutters up my Apple Watch, so I turn that off. But it is this option right here, add a keyboard shortcut. This, when you click this, and I happen to use Control F because I remap my Control key and my caps lock key, so that I simply just do a pinky F and it formats my syntax no matter where I am, no matter the application, inside a FileMaker watch variable, a tooltip, the hide calculation, conditional formatting, define fields, you name it, wherever you are. And here is the cool thing. This application, the format calculation, will only apply within FileMaker to whatever text is selected. And whatever changes you make in the shortcut here, real time, will apply. If I take this and uncheck this, and then just go run it again, it's going to actually apply. Now let me give a shortcut here and see if Control D, because my Control F is on my own personal shortcut, which you want to stick around, I'm going to show you. So we will leave the settings right here. I will leave this as Control D. I'll switch over to Brian Dunning's website. I will go backwards. I'll go to the newest functions. I believe there's Kyle has a really super long function here that I want to get into FileMaker. I switch over to FileMaker. I open up my custom functions. Actually, let's just do it in a watch variable. Doesn't matter where I am. I paste that code. I cannot make sense of this code. It is formatted in a way where it's got all of these semicolons in front. If I only want to format a particular area of code, I can highlight that code alone and it will format it. The one thing that's going to happen is the FM Indent is going to look at the code that's selected and treat it independent of all of the rest of the code. So what's going to happen is all of these indents are going to shift over. If I hit that Control D, that did not do that. Let's see, Control F. I'll use my Control F. Process without JavaScript. You can see right there that it pushed everything in because it didn't respect. Now, I don't know if this is something that Debbie can address. When the selection is made, she may only be working specifically with the selection and the selection alone, and can't actually look at the fact that within the whole of this content, I do have some preceding indent, and that's where I should start, which would be at this level right here. So all of this should be indented. But never fear. This is why you're watching this video. If you are using the MBS plugin, and if in the Shortcuts app you are using tabs, you use hard-coded tabs instead of spaces, this is why I suggest this, you are able to outdent and indent this with keyboard shortcuts. The command bracket, the MBS plugin allows you to move this out and in. So notice that I am, with the combination of FM Indent and MBS, be able to very quickly get this code exactly how I want. Not only because I can format the whole of the calculation, so let's go ahead and paste that in, and let's say I want all of this. I will select all of it, I will format it, it will come up, I will do no, so that it doesn't go through my post-processing, which we still need to look at. And then if I happen to want this particular line up on the other side, I can simply just say, I want this like this, and I want this code outdented even more. And I have that control given the MBS plugin and this new FM Indent tool. So now what you want to know is, Matt, how are you actually, let's find a nice little let function within here. Dun, dun, dun. There's a let function right there. So let's take all of this let function, and which the MBS plugin, by the way, also shows you this nice closing bracket indication. Notice that if I select right after this, I get the, it will highlight, or MBS has highlighted, where the closing bracket is. As I scroll down, it's probably at the very bottom. There it is. Yeah, it ends up being the whole of the calculation code. Let's go ahead and click cancel on here, and let's go over to something a little bit more simple into our age right here, and we'll take a look at this. So in this particular instance, what I did by having it do the post-processing, I wanted to be able to have my brackets where it's putting them on their own line, etc. I wanted to be able to have mine so that I could fit my own format. That's what we're going to look at right now, how we can actually do post-processing after the FM Indent has run its processing. All right, so let's go take a look at what we want to do after Debbie's wonderful FM Indent has done all of the syntax formatting for us, and we can apply further what we want. We'll use the example that I went to ChatGPT. If you're not using AI as a developer, you should absolutely be using AI. It can create code faster for you than you can type it out yourself. You just have to become proficient enough to know when the AI is giving you a bunch of BS, which, funny enough, when I went in to start to understand how to use one of the features of shortcuts, funny little story, I went and used Claude AI, and I wanted it to create the code for me. It took between ChatGPT and Claude, and I didn't use Gemini. It went through 7 different iterations before I just finally had to give it a simple list and said, do this first, this second, this third, fourth, and fifth. And then when it applied it, that was actually a better approach. If you think AI is the end-all, be-all and going to write and do all of your code for you, it's not. AI is not creative. AI just spits out what it knows. You are creative. You're the developer. You have to do that. We copy the code. Now, I could, right here in AI, I could just ask it prefix all variables with tilde, and it will do that, but I want to be able to format any code that I find anywhere else with that. So I'm not going to always ask AI. This is a very simple task to do. So I'm going to copy that code. We're going to go over to FileMaker. We're going to create a new custom function. We're going to paste that in, and we're going to say this is called time ago is what I'm going to call this. Now, AI is probably giving me a bunch of garbage in here. I would have to evaluate this, but long story short, I am able to select all of this, do my Control F, process with JavaScript, and it is now giving me everything according to my standards. Although this is not something I would actually do, I would probably clean this up a little bit more. Timestamp field right here. Let's copy that. That's probably my input variable. I can see that because of the syntax format highlighting and the coloring applied by MBS. This should accept, and it does in fact accept. I can go over, I can click my time ago and say time ago, and I can put it in get current timestamp minus 1000. And let's see if it gives me a result. There we go. There is my custom function with AI all formatted easily for me to actually see. You want to know, how did I accomplish this? This is what we're taking a look at right now. All right, so this is the true power of this particular application, FM Indent. Your ability to duplicate Debbie's original shortcut. I'm going to give you a URL that I'm going to show on screen and will be in the article description, that if you want to save yourself the time, you are going to be able to do that. I am going to show you my code and how I actually approach this applying my own standards. We're going to go in and edit my duplicate of Debbie's particular shortcut that she provides as a starter. Now, that template is very simple. It's a great starting point, but if you haven't worked with shortcuts, it can be a little bit confusing sometimes of what you need to do, or I had to figure some things out in order to make it happen. First off, as I scroll down, what you're going to see is we start with the same thing. We receive input. We format the calculation. We're taking the shortcut input right here. You can click in these little dialogues. It's going to apply all of Debbie's settings right here. And then the next action block after that, I changed to a set variable. I'm setting the variable to formatted to take the format calculation. So this is basically the variable name formatted is holding all of the code that has been processed by the FM Indent tool and is now just a block of text, all well formatted according to the settings I like. I am then going to run an Apple script. In this particular case, the reason I'm running an Apple script is that the shortcuts application has a particular thing called ask for input. But FileMaker, because of its dialogues being floating palettes and floating, sometimes a floating window, a calc dialog can be floating and you can't get to other dialogues. Because of that, this particular task doesn't always show. But AppleScript will. It will come in front of FileMaker. So I chose to use AppleScript, and here I'm just displaying a dialog. That dialog, as we can see, is processed with JavaScript. And I'm trying to ultimately get what is the button that you clicked right here. This variable says you either got no or you got yes. And then after that, what we're going to see is I capture what the end result of this Apple script was. I take that Apple script and we say, if that variable of the option is yes, meaning you clicked on the yes button, then I, as a developer, get to do whatever I want with that text that Debbie's tool processed. This means that I can use JavaScript, I can use AppleScript, I can use Python, I can use Perl, I can use anything in the operating system, because AppleScript can run things with do shell script as a command. Literally anything. The easiest thing for me was right here to just simply have Apple, the Shortcuts app, hand it off to the OS, run JavaScript with the input, and do whatever I want. Now here is the key. I'm going to save you a couple of hours. This is the reason that my subscribers subscribe to my videos, is because I provide this type of insight, because I've saved you the 2 hours that it took me just to dig through docs and ultimately find even AI didn't know. In order to know what is being handed off from the application, it comes out as basically this really long, convoluted thing, which Apple has decided, and I couldn't even find the docs for it quick enough, so I had to just basically write debug code in order to see what I was getting. But it essentially is an array with an array and an embedded object. It had two total items in it, and this is the code that you need right here. Everything that's highlighted underneath this, that's all specific to my standards that I like. I'm transforming my let by simply taking the square bracket, putting it up on the same line as the parenthesis. I'm walking line by line, doing additional processing to what Debbie's app is actually returning. But this highlighted on screen is what you actually need, and then the matching part down at the bottom is just your closing part right here, with a return variable. You're going to be returning a string and then whatever it is that you want to return. Now, in my particular case, I'm running 3 different functions on the actual code right here. So this code is the code that came from that formatted variable that came from Debbie's application, got into the shortcut. I'm running JavaScript, and then I'm prefixing my let variables. I'm adding on the tilde. I am transforming my let by moving the bracket up onto the previous line. I am formatting my ampersands, where I put each new ampersand on its own line. I'm essentially doing whatever I want to do using JavaScript and being able to have this assigned to a shortcut key in order to get what I want as my ideal formatting. And this is all benefit to Debbie putting this application out. I have known that you're able to get input into FileMaker with shortcuts, but my preferred tool, as I've stated in previous videos, has always been Typinator. Typinator allows me to manipulate and work with the clipboard so easily that I never really needed to consider shortcuts as much in order to, say, for example, execute JavaScript, which JavaScript is going to give you a ton of power. You can basically do anything to any text that you want to do. You can do it with an Apple script, but Apple script, quite honestly, isn't as common or convenient, I should say. So I would much rather AI can nail JavaScript so quickly, so easily. In fact, a lot of the JavaScript that I put in here, I had AI do it, had to tweak it a little bit, but I got it done. It kicked it out in a matter of, seconds, and I was able to most of it use as is. So it is a big, huge time saver in order to do that. So what you are interested in is getting the tool, hooking it up, assigning a shortcut key, and then doing whatever further processing you want in order to get the result that you'd like. All right, for a close, here is what I'd like to see from you. I have given you the knowledge and the time that I spent in order to make FM Indent an ultimately powerful tool to get whatever type of formatting and output you want. In order to benefit Debbie, I would like to see this number jump right here, and I'm going to tell you how to do this. One, you're already, if you're on a Macintosh, probably heading to and downloading FM Indent. You're going to hook that up. You're going to install the shortcut. I'm going to provide you with a link to the shortcut. It's on screen. It's in the article right now. That will include the post-processing if you want to use it. Assign a key. And the way that you're going to help Debbie out is you're going to, when you're on the page, give this app a rating. Give it whatever stars you feel it's worth. I personally feel it's worth 5 stars, not only because she's providing it for free and it does all of this stuff and hooks up to the OS level, but because it's just an amazingly cool tool. And usually the simple ones are really easy. You can also, as I suggest, write a review. Let's shoot Debbie's chart of developer tools as FileMaker developers up to the top. Let's bump that number, give her some stars on her application. Debbie, I can't thank you enough for this application. It's absolutely brilliant. For those of you that are on Windows, if you're still watching, even though this has been all about the Macintosh, Debbie does have over at her website, which I'm going to head to right now. We'll go to it. She does have, and it's AppWorks, I believe, AppWorks/tools. Is where it is right there. So if you are on Windows, or if you have a window friend who is not using the Macintosh, you can go to Debbie's website, appworks.com/tools.html, and right here on screen is probably what's using Debbie's original code, which was a Perl CGI script. It has a lot of the familiar settings that we saw all down here. You can control the spaces, the length, the hard wrap, etc. There's a few other ones because she's using Perl as opposed to the FM Indent, which is written in Swift. But it will format your code for you if you're on Windows and you do not have access to a Mac and you simply want to get your code formatted. This has been here for, Debbie mentioned, for 20 years. I never even knew or used it. I always applied my own formatting manually, but I'm pretty sure you can guess how I'm formatting my code now. As always, I'd like to wish you much luck with your own FileMaker development, and until next time, happy FileMaking.
We hope you've enjoyed this video tutorial, and we'd like to say thank you for your subscription and your support. If you're not already a subscriber, head on over to www.filemakermagazine.com/subscribe for more information about the benefits of joining.